it's like we're on and then we go live, but we were already in mid conversation, so it is what it is. I mean,
Oh,
learning we're learning at the same time, real time, literally. But
oh, that is
it's
so
certain,
cool.
yeah, it's certain things like this where the podcast or going live, we just have to probably list some topics
Mhm,
that business owners would benefit from.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
Marketing, follow up, content, how to engage your your um, your niche or your preferred client,
mhm,
what that client looks like, because there could be some people out there that's like, I just want to work with everyone, and it's
mhm,
like, because all money is not good money, and usually people that are in their second or third year, they start learning that real quick because it's like, man, that client
mhm,
was a problem that I had to really navigate through and learn, to set boundaries. And that's
mhm,
another topic right there is boundaries, which is why we have operating hours because even myself, I was guilty of it. Some clients work days, some clients work nights. Well, if they're on at night and and their questions are firing off, I wanted to capture that opportunity, and I was like responding to emails 10, 11 o'clock at night. Well,
yeah,
what does that tell the client? Oh, Anthony's available. Yeah, you can just
mhm,
send him a message and he'll respond.
yeah,
And what if I don't? Like, oh, he's not really responsive. What kind of business is he doing? Does he really know what
mhm,
he's doing? So you really have to, there's a learning curve in it, but a huge benefit in networking is that you learn because you're picking from, there's all demographics in your platform. You got newbies, you got young people, you got seasoned people, you got people that's been in marketing or business for decades that can talk to people and meet them where they are at their level of business where they're at so they can take it to the next level. And we were
mhm,
all newbies trying to figure this out. We'd be stumbling all over each other like, well, what did you try this week? Well, what did you try this week? But when you have
mhm,
veterans, we have seasoned veterans on here that have like written books, done workshops that have been paid to give the information that they're allowing you to have access to because of the platform and because your heart of service. That's that's like priceless because I've flown to Vegas and sat in conferences and pay for hotels. I mean, you're spending $1,200 easy in a weekend, and you're only
mhm.
asking them to pay $40 a month, and you're having different
Right.
speakers. You're having different speakers every week. So it's
Mhm,
not like, hey, tune in on the third week of Thursdays where we have, people coming in. You have speakers consistently coming in and it's never the same.
mhm.
The
Right.
the the temperature in the room is never the same. The quality of people is never the same, even though you may have some familiar faces. But as far as the atmosphere, it's never the same. So
Mhm,
when you're bringing quality content, you're bringing um, a circle of influence. So you're not the one doing all the legwork or the heavy lifting. You're bringing all this to the table for a monthly fee, not by event or you're saying for this small fee, I'm giving you all of these benefits to do this, which no other network organization will ever offer because it would cut into their profit. Because now, in order for them to give me more, they're going to have to either change the amount that what they're already charging because they're already overpriced. Most networking organizations, they charge you for membership, they charge you for the venue, they charge you for any outside parties or activities, and the amount rack up where you're paying 1,200 plus, and 1,200 is being generous because I've spent quite a bit of money because I've been in at least four other different networking events, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I would love to sit down and have dialogue with somebody that would say otherwise. We've paid way too much money and got little return. So I just want to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing because even at the early stage that you're at, you've extended across state lines and you're bridging that gap where people's like, I wonder who else can benefit from our product. And you're like, here they are.
Well, thank you, Anthony.
For sure. I'm in 100% agreement. I think you don't charge enough for what you bring to the table, but it's a learning process, and you have to be comfortable with it. You can't, whatever we say is not to the same degree to what you believe for yourself and what you want for yourself and what you're prepared for. So all of that it's getting there, girlfriend.
Absolutely.
Woo-hoo. Well, for anyone that's watching, this is a live video. Anthony and Wonderful and I, we were doing some business brainstorming, and then we decided to go live on YouTube, so that's fun. So, what Anthony would you say for people who are like, well, I could just go on Zoom myself and build my community on my own, as far as like networking and everything? What do you think draws people in communities to come to Leeds to build their community versus just kind of doing it on their
own? First off, they come from a place of service. They genuinely want to help other people grow, because small business is what is driving our economy right now at this time at 4:24 in the afternoon on July 6th. Small business is what's driving. So the entrepreneurs and those have already invested in a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising, a lot of outside sources to get the word out of who I am, where I am, and what I'm offering. You offer that on this single platform for them, which is pennies on the dollar as far as what most people have paid. I've paid for articles, in magazines. I've paid for, marketing on other people's newsletters, and just to multiply and duplicate my efforts. And it's hit and miss. It's no different than cold calling, and I've done that too. But coming here, it isn't for the faint heart, for one, because at the end of the day, it's about relationship, and you can't teach personality. You can teach me how to sell, but you can't teach me how to engage and like people. You have to come from that, and people already are bringing that to the table. So the fact that you are presenting that because of that's who you are, it's very easy to follow. And not only that, it's easy to duplicate, because I have no hesitation. Like, I name drop you like you're, I don't know, like somebody famous. Like I name drop you so much. They're like, Melissa, where have I heard that name before? Melissa, you heard me say your name. I mean, I've said it numerous times. Like, you need to talk to Melissa. You need to find out how you can plug in and how you can get on board and get behind this vision, because your vision isn't yours. You're in the driver's seat, but you're stopping every opportunity that you can to invite others to join you on this journey. And that's the difference. Most people are driving this for profit.
own.
And I think that's the one of the big driving points that separates you from other people. You're along for the ride because you see what's at the end of the tunnel. You see the prize. You just want other people to benefit from it, because it's no fun celebrating at the top of the mountain by yourself.
Right.
So you're inviting people along the way. It's like, hey, let's win together. I want to celebrate you. Let's celebrate each other, and let's enjoy it while we're doing it, instead of grinding out and have this mindset like, once we get there, then we can celebrate. We're celebrating now because we're looking at the small wins that people are seeing week in and week out. When people jump on the call and say, hey, I had a great meeting with such and such last week, or she helped me, like Danny helped me with a emotional coding when she did that. Now my color is
Yes.
yellow, right? See?
Yeah.
And so when people are offering that just out of the kindness of their heart because they want people to
Mm-hmm.
be the best version of themselves so they can be the best they can, the best business owner that they probably can be. I've never seen that anywhere else. I've never seen that.
So
Yeah.
that right there is incredible content right there, is to communicate it in a way that's just like what Anthony reiterating, that you're in this business because number one, you're a master connector, right? Like you are the best friend everybody wishes for. But secondly, you're really good at being able to look at needs beyond what somebody is saying. And because you've done this to me a few times where you're like, oh, you should totally reach out to such and such because they would help you with this. And I always think, well, how did you know that? Like, how would you know that we would get along? But I think because you're always thinking of how you can create more for someone else. And that is content right there, right? Like leads is not about networking. It's about creating, and it's beyond relationship because relationship is very broad and big, right? And all businesses are about relationship, good and bad. But I think what you really bring to the table is that leads is about more authentic connections and relationships that go beyond business. Because here's the truth, you are a person who is an entrepreneur is not separate from their business. Your business reflects who you are. And the reality is the more isolated you are, the least amount of success you create for yourself, because nothing's ever built alone, right? Everything's built together. And community is how the human race has evolved over years and years and years of existence. And you just kind of know, right? Like, oh, in this tribe, we've got a master basket weaver, and then we've got somebody young who's been talking about wanting to be a basket weaver, but they don't know each other because on the other side of the hut of each other. Like, I'm just going to bring them together. And then magic happens, and you are asking very minimal, like pennies on the dollar for that kind of connection that nobody would really naturally get. Right? Like this whole thing, there's no other reason other than you, I would decide to spend an hour and a half with Anthony, right? Because we're not in the same industry and we don't really know each other. I've met him once at a meeting, but you had an inclination, oh, this would work. Neither of us, but it's interesting that we're very similar in the way we think and the way we see business and our experiences in business, right? Our credentials in business are very similar, but we didn't know that about each other, but you did. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's what is uniquely what leads is that. I don't know really what to call that, but it's like an organic way of farming the land.
It's like an intuition thing for me though.
Mhm.
Like it's an intuition. Like it just naturally just is like these two have a connection,
Mhm. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think that's the magic. Like, how
Yeah.
would you know to go to LA or, I think about it. I think about, oh, it'd be cool to have some connections in LA, or it'd be great to have connections in Colorado. But I just, that even though I have people that live in those areas in my friends space of Facebook, but I don't know. It's just not something I would do, but it's very natural for you to see the connection with people. And that's really, I think, the magic that leads brings. And when you can, and that kind of duplicates itself because the people you attract are like you, so it duplicates. And then the relationships, like when I think of the people you've introduced me to, I refer all the time without even knowing that that's what I'm doing. I just genuinely, you know what I'm saying? I just like them.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you should totally get a hold of Dan here. Oh, here's the information. I've introduced people on Messenger that I've met through you all the time to my closest friends.
Awesome. I love hearing that. That's like what makes me love what I do so much is when somebody says, you know, oh, I signed up with Legal Shield, you know, or oh, I hired Wonderful to coach me. And I love that. My son's playing with the curtains right now. That's what brings me the ultimate joy is like when I hear that people have connected and are doing business together, like, oh, my heart is like completely full.
Mhm.
Well,
That's what needs to go out on a regular, that right there.
Well, it's going out right now. I forgot we're live for a second there. It's like, well, the whole world's listening to it now.
Good thing I combed my hair today.
Thank you.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony. You never learn. When are you going to comb your hair?
That's funny.
Well, thanks you guys for coming on and chatting with me. And
Yeah,
business
thank you.
and being an entrepreneur is hard. I mean, honestly, today I woke up and it was like one of those days where I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a tough one. And now I'm laughing and
Yes.
thank you. Made my
And it
day.
takes years. It takes a couple of years to kind of subside that voice, right? The first few years, you kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Oh my God. But then after, you know, after a while, you just, that isn't as loud as your desire to serve. So
Agreed.
give it time. It'll go away.
Yeah. And if not, we'll be your reminder.
Right. For sure. Like yeah. Whenever I hear that, I'm always like, trust me, you don't want to quit. You don't. But no, you don't.
Right?
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't let her.
Wonderful's my person where I was like, I quit. I can't do it anymore. Like, no, I can't do it.
No, it's I don't know. It's invigorating. And entrepreneurship to me is like, I love it. I love every piece of it. I love the challenge. I love the wins. I love the lows. I love the, you know, the search or the, I like it to, it's like, because I'm not a big amusement ride person. To me, this is like how I get my adrenaline, because I don't like heights. I don't like things that like most people are all about adrenaline. I'm like, oh, can't do it. But to me, business is very like adrenaline, because every day you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be in business forever and still be like waking up every day going, oh my gosh, what's new today? Or what am I? And I love that. Like, to me, that's what gets me going.
Well, tell us while we're here, how you help people with what you do in your business.
Oh, me. My turn.
Yeah.
So my favorite quote about what I do is by a gentleman named John C. Maxwell, who is the godfather of all leadership. And he says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I am a huge advocate for that. And when I think of why it's so important that self-leadership needs to be a central focus for entrepreneurs, it is the driving force of what keeps us innovative, keeps us inspired, keeps us searching for, you know, connection. And it's what I believe is always creating that need to serve and give to others, is because circumstances in our environment changes all the time, right? If it isn't COVID, it's something else. Like, the world's always going to do what it does. And self-leadership is really managing our personal strength, because we have the superpower called choice. And I think in entrepreneurship, choice is the thing that we kind of not necessarily disregard, but what is that word I'm looking for? Take for granted, right? Because there's so much of it all the time, like all day long. And I think when we really are really clear about who we are and why we are doing what we do and how we create the vehicle to get there, that is self-leadership, right? And then when you can self-lead, you can lead anyone. Like, yeah, if you can't, like, I have this saying that you can't give what you don't possess, right? You know how teenagers be like, I am so in love. I said, but if you can't love you, you can't love another person. That's not gonna happen. And it's the same thing, right? Like, if we can't self manage our own emotions and lead ourselves through the difficult times, how do we do that for others? And we do that all the time. We're in groups all the times outside of business, in our personal lives, in corporate America, and whatever jobs we're in, families, friendships, right? We're always in some way or another at some point in our lives being asked to lead. And that's always such a question for everybody, is like leadership there, it seems so difficult and there's a lot of pressure. But if you start with yourself first, it won't be as heavy burden for the bigger picture, the bigger groups. So that is what I do. I am a advocate and I'm passionate about unleashing our personal power through self-leadership. Yay. I totally just came up with that, by the way.
You're doing.
I was like, man, is this recorded? Because I really want to write that down.
It is. We finally were smart and recorded our conversation, so everyone can get
awesome. Because I'm gonna rewind that and write it down. Be like, this is what I'm gonna say.
And you're doing a workshop at the big event coming up on Saturday.
Yes,
too. So
yes. I'm really
that.
excited about that. I because this is a new arena for me. I've been an entrepreneur for my entire adult life. My first business was when I was 22 and I had it for 20 years. And then, but it was a brick and mortar. And then, so initially after I sold the businesses, I didn't know anything about business coaching, but it fell into my lap and I really enjoyed it. But I was kind of struggling with the passion for it because I know the logistics of business, but it wasn't like I was so passionate about it. And then I found that, it's because within the business, it's really self-leadership that I think that was really the key to my longevity of business and the levels of success that we were able to attain. And once I really figured out, this is a thing, now it's my thing. That's what I do.
It is your magic dust.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, I didn't know that it was something that I could teach because it's just something I know, right? Whereas with business, it's very tangible. You have a plan, you have a strategy, you can create systems, all of it is very, useful kind of tangible information. And for me, self-leadership is just something I've honed in as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Really, it's like what Anthony was saying earlier. We've done the Vegas thing and have flown everywhere to gain more information because you have to be educated not just in your field, but for your own benefit. And the amount of money you spend and the time you invest is like, who knew we could have just zoomed that?
Right? Grant Cardone, isn't he one of those like big ones?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen, bless his heart, he's no longer with us, but oh my gosh, Southern gentleman. He's if you want all the things in your life, all you have to do is help enough people. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
What's
I
his
think I have
Also
name?
heard.
sounds like the Go-Giver.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. You get inspired and you go do
Zig,
these. And do you
Zig,
guys remember who I'm talking? Zig Ziglar.
Zig
That's it.
Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar.
Zig.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Zig.
seen him. I've
Mhm.
gone to
Oh, really?
and
You saw him? Wow, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's sort of our duty and responsibility to consistently seek personal growth because that's to the degree of your success is how much growth you are experiencing. But it costs money and you got to fly there because no one ever comes to Seattle for some reason.
Okay, well, we have free workshops coming up, right? On Saturday,
Mhm.
the big event. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit about what your workshop's going to be about. So people,
Oh, I'm excited.
can you tell my dog?
Uh, my workshop is going to be about um, just everyday issues that, because of cost, um, we end up we end up fearing it or responding incorrectly. So it ends up costing us more time and money than what we anticipated. So a lot of people don't understand what it really looks like to have an advocate that really has your best interest. And so that's what I'm going to talk about is you don't have to fight all these fights by yourself. And so
Mm.
you can have that peace of mind knowing that within reach, you can reach out to someone and they can fight some of these battles for you and alongside of you. So
Mm.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur, we have so many different things going on. That's just the last thing that we need, right? To worry about.
Yeah.
Have Anthony handle it. Have Legal Shield handle it.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you always need an ally, especially in areas that freak people out, right? Like anything legal. Do you guys does Legal Shield do waivers and things like that? Or
what do you mean, like power of attorneys?
no, like for businesses, what is there a section within Legal Shield that is for how to protect businesses?
Absolutely. Not only that, there's a benefit in it where employers, where it's twofold. One, it saves on man hours because if you can offer it to your employee, if I'm your employee and you provide this service just like dental insurance, that all I have to do is on my lunch break call in and let them know what issue I'm dealing with. Now a professional in that area of law can deal with it and I can get back to work and focus on what I need to instead of worrying about, oh, what documentation do I need to get out? Do I need to print that off? Do I need to get it notarized? Do I need to have this signed off? Who do I need to take it to? Do I need to Google that? And so many times
Yeah.
we self-diagnose our situations with Google, which, Google is a great search engine, but for only up to a certain degree until
Yeah.
certain point. There are people that are seriously like trying to cure themselves on Google. And I'm just like, you gotta seek some professional advice. And when it's coming to law, think about it. Every contract that we've ever signed was written by who? An attorney. So why
Mm-hmm.
would you go in there by yourself without having an attorney review that or be able to speak on your behalf in a certain situation? And so, but with education, or we make decisions based off the information that we have readily accessible to us. So by level the playing field, by providing that access to them, it alleviates so much stress in so many households because most of the time we're either talking about money, we're talking about um, uh, relationships, or we're talking about business. It's one of those three. And of course, the last one is probably sex, but that can work out, that can also be worked out too with proper communication. But when you don't have that proper communication in place or have a reliable resource, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's and that's why that's why I love like bringing in all these new types of businesses as speakers at my events, because like you said, there's relational stuff that we're dealing with even as entrepreneurs. And if we're dealing with relational things, around us, that's going to hinder how we're performing when we're in our business. So that reminds me, I don't have a speaker for Wednesday. So what interests you guys as far as like what would you like to learn about? I remember Anthony one time was like taxes, like I want to learn about taxes. And so we had a tax guy on, he came on and then chatted with us about taxes. And
I think a big one for, we kind of touched on it earlier, is setting proper boundaries, setting proper expectations. Because the last thing, somebody could have good intent, but end up over promising and under deliver. And it wasn't their intention. Like, for example, like when I first started out, I was like excited and was running around telling, I was like, oh, you gotta try this out, you gotta try this out. And I ended up making it so big that people really couldn't wrap their brain around. I was like, wait a minute, did this attorney just graduate from, law school? Like what quality, because you're making it sound really good, Anthony. Like, or am I even talking to an attorney? Am I talking to his assistant? And then they're like passing on it was people coming back and I was just like, oh, okay, I need to reel this back in, do some more training and talk with some people and learn how to set those proper expectations, because we could be so excited about our business because we know how good it is. But when you try to communicate that and set the proper expectations so everybody wins, sometimes it's a serious learning curve on that. And that could cost some people time and money.
Yeah. I did that when I first started like a skincare company. I just was like blowing up everybody's phone and email and Facebook, like, look at those products. And that was not the way to go. And it was just, you just burn bridges when and it's like, it comes from excitement, but at the same time, you have to learn a strategy that, that works. But I mean, even going back to where we were talking before about just having a giving, just coming from a place of giving and just talking to people about like how, seeing how you can help them. You really can't go wrong with that, right? It's like, wow. Yeah, I'm on the lookout for a speaker for Wednesday. So
What about you? What are you thinking about? Like, what are you looking for?
I it's really interesting because it's just been happening. Like my calendar has just been getting like stacked up with, oh, okay, let's have this person speak, let's have this person speak. And like all of a sudden I'm just like, oh wow, okay, I'm down to the bottom of my list. So just have to like kind of start getting that list going again. But I always like to throw it out there and see like what people like, what's one thing that you would really want to learn, something that could grow your business.
Scheduling is a big one, especially for salesmen. For a salesman, yeah, scheduling.
Mm.
Because if
What
you
about
don't,
Nicole Richie? Did she kind of touch on that a little bit when she spoke, Nicole Richie? That was more about follow up and organizing, though, right?
that was
Yeah.
organizing. But I think
Yeah.
she did mention it. But I think she had more because she had to cut it. She had to cut it so we could actually go into speed networking.
All right.
So people were to follow up with her to get more information. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of more. That was more information because when we went into the speed networking, she had more in the tank. So, um, but I think time blocking is key because
Mhm.
here again, that's something that I had to learn
Mm.
just through trial and error. But
Yeah.
scheduling everything, I remember a retired salesman told me this. He was like, "You put everything in your calendar, even if it's a lunch date, or a dinner date. When somebody says, "Hey, can you get together next week?" and you look at it, it's like, "Oh no, I have an appointment." He said, "It's none of their business what the meeting or the appointment is. It could be, just you going feeding the ducks by the lake.
Mhm.
But if that's your self-care moment or somewhere you unplug, that's an
Mhm.
appointment for you." He said,
Yeah.
just put it in your calendar." He said, "A
That
lot of
sounds
people
like
don't."
something Jennifer Kim would teach you. Did she teach you that? That sounds like something Jennifer Kim would say.
I'm gonna tell her you said that.
Oh, I love Jennifer Kim. She's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah. But
I belong to a ton of groups online, like a ton of them, right? I just, I went nuts one day, and it was before I fell in love with leads. I was just like, I'm just going to get online and find groups there. And it's interesting to me the questions that are pretty consistently asked by different people is, you know, the energy is in the same place. Now, my answer to all things is it's always going to be leadership, because for me, I learned over the years of entrepreneurship that that it, like, at the core of boundaries and at the core of scheduling and at the core of motivation, because that's a question that's always asked in these groups, like, how do you stay motivated? And I always think like all of that really wraps around self-regulation and self-awareness and self motivation, right? Because like everything else is tangible. Like if we're really talking about guidelines, right? Like professional guidelines and expectations, right? That's like business manual. You've got to have a business operations. Like this is why I still believe in a business plan. A lot of people, it's a hit and miss. Half of the people love business plans and half of the people don't. But really a business plan was originally created for as a roadmap and also for funding. And it should have all of your information on it, because you can't, it's your proposal for funding. It shows you what you do, who you do it for, how you're going to get there, and what's your projected income, right? And so when you create a plan, you already naturally have to set boundaries in there of client expectation, right? Your expectations, company expectations, income expectations, uh, your money expectations, huge. And it's fascinating to me how that isn't a driving force for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like these are the things that you should already have a baseline for in order for, because as you grow, if you consistently grow and these things are not already your foundational pieces, the chances of you not knowing where your money goes and how to reinvest it for growth is really like not, it's non-existent, right? And so, and I say that with a little bit of like kudos, because at 22 years old, I borrowed a shit ton of money from a family member to start a business. I was able to pay that off in 5 years, right? And I've never borrowed money from the bank from that initial payment. And I was able to make $500,000, right, in a 10-year period. And then when I hit my $1 million mark, and all of it is because you've got to be really clear. Like, your boundaries are called your budgets, right? And and scheduling is a huge part of your boundaries, because that is how you create time management. Is, here's the boundary of my life. At 9 p.m. I don't pick up phone calls, right? I don't check email. At noon, I'm only going to have lunch from 1 to 2. I mean, I learned it the hard way, but then eventually every Friday for 2 hours, because I'm a ledger person, we would write in how much, based on the goal of that week of how much I needed to make and how many people we needed to talk to, what was the outcome of that. And every Friday, that's what we did. And then at the beginning of every year, we created we looked at our business plan, which initially we paid somebody to do, which is not worth it, because I figured out what it was. And I was like, what? That's all you needed? And then you look at that every year and you create your new plan for your business, which then causes, because if you look at it from a stackable perspective and growth, right? Like how you see growth, 2020 growth is at 20%. How do you know how to increase it another 10% the next year, right? The first 3 years is all development. You're just trying to figure out what you are, what you do. But by that 4th year, if you're not making profit, then there's a miss. There's something that you're not organized. You're not organizing your thoughts. You're not organizing your time. You're not organizing your money. Those 3 things are the major, major downfalls of businesses. You're going to organize your time, your money, super important, right? And I'm reading about Legal Shield while we're talking, and it was prepaid legal. Oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, I did not know that. Yeah. And then this guy who's talking about it, I'm like, Legal Shield's a shit, actually. I'm reading it going, it's a no-brainer. It's about legal representation. Like, for however you pay a month, it's like insurance. Why would you not protect it? Anyways, I'm going on a whole nother tangent here. But what I'm saying is,
I think we just found our speaker for what? Wednesday, 2 o'clock, Thursday.
But I really want to stay focused on leadership, because you've got to be able to self-regulate all of that in the very beginning. And I taught, when I communicate with business owners, like, I always think, do you have these baselines? Because if we don't have these baselines, then it's really tough to talk about marketing strategies. Because your marketing strategy is basically time wasting and money wasting, because you've got to have this foundational piece of how you function and how you function within the operation of your business and how that investment is going to return on something. Because your day should not be just regulated on how you feel, right? And then your business shouldn't be just on ideas that's on a constant popping off. You've got to have a structured plan. But what I recognize is that, number one, it's either my language is intimidating, no one wants to hear, or number two, it's really scary. People get really scared. Like Danny was like, I didn't want to do your goal setting thing because I was all, worried about it. And I'm thinking, no, you've got some.
She got an incoming call, probably.
Oh, really? What happened?
Yeah, that's what happened last time when she froze. So somebody tried to call her.
Are you there? What happened? Where'd you go?
Oh,
where'd you go?
He froze.
Did we freeze on your end?
Are we back?
Yeah.
I think we're all here now.
And now I just want to give away this stuff for free because
right.
I don't want to sell my business knowledge. I really want to focus on leadership because that is the core of it. So I'm really down to help anybody, like anybody who wants to spend an hour, 2 hours figuring it out and narrowing it down to these things. I am in because I love it. But, and I just want to serve people and I want to sell my other product. So I used to sell business plans as part of my service, because I kind of like the whole research aspect of it. It's not difficult for me to do. I just need a lot of information from you, but I'd be willing to work with somebody on that. I mean, it takes a few weeks, right? Because it's very detailed. But I'm not a big fan of a robust business plan. Like, I think you should have at least a 1-pager and at the most a 5-pager, right?
Mm.
Because we're constantly evolving. But that particular plan should be the solid compass for how your business navigates. And that also will help with, because it has a lot of sales projections in it, right? Like your sales strategy is involved in a business plan. And that helps with how you schedule your calls, because it has an actual outcome. Like, you want a particular result, right? Because I've always broken things up in quarters also. It's how you pay taxes in a business is quarterly. And so all of your marketing sales goals need to be quarterly also. That's just, for me, it's worked for years. That's how it worked for years. Like, it made it easier because then you know what worked that quarter, and then you just knew the influx, and then it gives you kind of your cycle of business too. Like, depending on the type of business you have a cycle of where it hits top, where it goes down. And then that prepares you. If you get a whole year of a cycle and you see it, you'll know what marketing strategy to push during a downtime, right? And so that way on your upscale, does that make sense?
It does.
And these are all the little things that in business, right, that and you learn over time, but no one really has just a process for. And I think that we all need to have some form of process how we do our business, because it's the same thing. Like, I bet you, if you look statistically, there are certain times of the year there are more car accidents than not.
Mm.
Right. And then that right there tells you whatever cycle that they're going to need that more is when you push that marketing strategy, preparing them, because that's just how it is. It's kind of weird, right? Like, certain times businesses need a real push in leadership, and certain times people need a real push for community. So summer is really good for networking. I'm just guessing. I don't know the stats on that, but I'm guessing that that's when it goes in a lull of connection and community. Or is it during the holidays? I don't know. When do these are things that we do it in
during
our
COVID. Never.
right.
Well, right now it's definitely relational because of all the isolation. So people are trying to maintain those connections and bonds that they had when everybody was able to meet whenever they wanted to.
Yeah.
So the flip side of that, though, there are some people that are regretting it because they kept putting it off. Oh yeah, we get the next week, next weekend. Oh yeah, next month after Memorial Day, and then and they never got that chance to connect. So I'm hoping coming out of this, when people start looking at ways to do business differently, is that they're more intentional.
Yeah.
They're more intentional because it's evident.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is, I think that as leaders of our businesses, we really have to have the conversation of creating that intention, because we have to lead that movement, right? Because you already see it. If you are already recognizing that, like, for instance, a lot of the questions that come up in these billions of groups that I have, you can kind of tell, like, oh, there's some emotional disparity that's happening, right? And it usually sits around this area of motivation or inspiration and confidence. These are the 3 things that is constantly being asked about. So then that gives me an idea of how I need to communicate But then also I have to make sure that they're my perfect target market, right? Because then we have to manage our time well. It's still a business no matter what.
Mhm.
And I think that that's an area that that's the thing about what I would encourage people is that you've got to not assume, but lead it, because it's a need, right? It's a need to intentionally push this dialogue or this direction. And it's your duty. And then if you think about that responsibility, guess who likes, trusts, and knows you more? The people who are listening to how you're leading them. That's really the whole thing about know, like, or trust is you got to lead the conversation. You got to lead that environment, right? And then when people talk about influencers, it's really about how much you give, because influencers, especially the young ones that are on Instagram, all they're doing is giving their generation what they want: gossip, crap, more gossip, right?
Mhm.
So if you're looking at it from that perspective too, it's the same thing, right? So all of these small issues that we think are a little phrase can be addressed, but we have to get to the root of it first. And the root is, we've like, what are we willing, because what it is talking about is what are we willing to do to make it happen? Like basically this meeting is about 3 people who have a desire to serve, meaning that we have to lead our industries in the direction that is needed. So with that being said, like, I think in sales, you are like amazing. Just the way that you talk, like how you talk people up, that's like, you could sell that product all day long, right? And then on top of that, be like, because then I don't know if Legal Shields is a multi-level, is it? So, right? Because what you're trying to do is duplicate yourself. And by you leading, you're teaching somebody else how to lead their own lives.
Right.
And then that's what it ultimately is, because that's what MLM is about, is duplicate. You make the most money by duplicating yourself, not selling the product, right? The product
True.
just happens to be superior. Above, there's nothing else really out there. I used LegalZoom and prepaid legal when I had a brick and mortar.
Mhm.
Those are my 2 go-tos.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it as a business. I did it as our protection, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it worked because we were really good about how our operations already worked.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, like, yeah, we've got some work to do, ladies and gentlemen.
We
And I'm
do.
so excited to be doing it with you, because
Woohoo.
we're about to change the world with how we're going to show up.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm really thankful for both of you as
Me
members
too.
and
Yeah.
and also friends. I consider you friends. I love it,
Likewise.
So thank you.
Yeah, I really like Anthony.
Right? I
I wouldn't have
told
stayed.
you.
I would not have stayed on this long if I
I
was
told
like,
you.
oh Lord. I'd have been like, all right, I have something I gotta do. Bye.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You know
Hours
you like the
later.
person if you could keep talking.
I know. I could sit here and talk all day.
Oh,
I have to get to a training actually. So when you were talking about growing and learning and keep, learning new things, I have a training to get to. And I
yes.
think Anthony heard about it. It's called Banner Season.
Yeah.
The
Mm-hmm.
company that sent you your brownies, were they yummy?
They were. It was. Yeah. I should have slowed down because I ate them too fast.
So yeah, so if you guys are free, just text me and I'll send you the Zoom link. But he's doing a training today because it's kind of an extensive program. It's basically like an appreciation program because I I think, you know, a lot of us have clients and they need to know that you appreciate them and that you know, and I think with the social media right now and email and texting, and I think people really appreciate getting stuff in the mail again. Like we've just kind of gone back in time, and now I think mail is something that people are really enjoying. So I got involved with this company, and it's super cool. And I think it's a really great way for people to grow their business and make connections with people and build relationships. So
I agree. I love both your businesses.
Right.
I've been approached a couple of times with Legal Shield, and like, you know, they always say, you know, within the first 30 seconds, and I haven't been sold since. I haven't been sold. But then I'm like, I like you, not necessarily your business. And I'm
Right.
reading it going, huh, every business should have this as their, this is part of their staples, like, you know, the static things you should have in business.
Well, they already budget for it. They're just using the wrong resource.
True. Yeah, I'll send you this thing. It's somebody's review on your business, and it's really good. It's very well written and thought out. Like it goes back into the history and why they liked it and why it's good, why it's not good. The why it's not good's kind of lame, so it's like, oh, I could do that.
Got it.
You know how everybody has a pro and con, and usually if it's the con, it's like, oh, they're under indictment for, you know, they're their cons is more like, well, you know, you never know this, you never that, but it's not anything serious. I'm like,
Right.
anything legal that has the word indictment, like get out. But that's
Seriously.
not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, send it to me.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll let you go. Sorry, Melissa. I just could literally talk forever. I'm sorry, you
I
guys.
literally I could talk to both of you like all day. Like awesome.
And then
guys.
let's stay connected. And